So we are here today to explore this amazing workforce capability framework with some awesome women from the domestic and family violence sector. We're going to have a think about what's in here and what that means in practice.
It's been, a really amazing journey over 2 years really to get here, and there's some really practical and plain language through the whole framework, which we hope will be really easy to apply in your practice. But we're really hoping to come up with some resources like we are today to help kind of bring that to life even more so.
The sector generally had really been struggling to think about training, and the capability framework just blew me away, and I wanted to do whatever I could to support it because I thought it was really worthy for the government to be funding. So I've been working in a leadership role in the sector for a long time, but I've been out of that now for 4 months. And I think if I'm thinking about anything reflectively, and it's only been 4 months, so these are very first flush thoughts about it, but it really is how this work, whether it's the frontline work or the team leading work or the coordination or the CEO roles, the leadership, the higher end leadership, it's the toll that this takes on our bodies. What I see in terms of vicarious resilience, the most that I see it is in the hope that I've seen in the people that I work alongside. And I don't mean that cheerful, everything will be okay in the end sort of hope, but that really robust, tough-minded hope. And knowing in our bones that our work matters, because we know oppression and injustice and fear, you can't respond to it with cynicism. You have to respond to it with hope. Cynicism and giving up doesn't do anything to help the people that we serve. One of the partners, one of our stakeholders on the Gold Coast in the integrated response, I think explains it really well. And she said, in my organisation, the role that I do, the organisation's always bigger than me. But this work we do in the integrated response, this work we do together, is bigger than my organisation. And I think that's a sustaining thing when you know the bounds of your own role and your own organisation and what its mandate or remit is, and you know that the work is much bigger, and you're working collectively with a group of people committed to the same thing. That work's always going to be bigger than your organisation and you. And surprisingly, that's very empowering, and I think adds greatly to sustainability. I think it's really important to normalise and encourage as much as possible, giving staff agency, more agency, or as much agency as operationally possible within a DV service. And no agency comes without accountability. And I think we need to talk more about that. I think as a DV sector, we are so good at wanting to hold everyone accountable. And I think if we're going to be congruent, we need to talk about how we hold ourselves accountable as individuals in the sector and what we're doing, and how as a sector that we're accountable to the people that we serve. And what could accountability mean in a DV service or in the sector? I think it's having those really awkward and courageous conversations with each other, challenging each other, setting strong boundaries with each other. I've worked in the DV sector for a long time. We're really good at setting boundaries or with stakeholders. We're not so good at doing them with each other in the sector. And I think some of these things, or that unwilling to lean into accountability with each other, can be some of the greatest sources of tension, and sometimes, again, ultimately destructive for people within organisations and for the organisation itself. I think where the capability framework could be really useful is helping guide some of the conversations that within organisations around supervision, and looking at what supervision means in this organisation, and then benchmarking that with what's happening elsewhere in the sector. And supervision means different things to different people, and there needs to be a benchmark. How those unmet expectations are handled at an individual level and as an organisation are some of the most destructive forces, I think, in our organisations and in the work. And I think we need to wrestle with the tensions of that and keep asking better questions and keep consulting. Perhaps one of the questions is how do we have those focus groups, and how can we listen to the people doing this work and finding out what those needs are and saying, here's what we can offer. What of this is useful and what if it's not? If we don't do the stuff that's not useful, what could we do instead? And I think the capability framework is a good springboard for starting some of these conversations. How does your privilege serve you in this work? and how are you using it to create more equity? And you ask that at a recruitment level, but I think leaders need to be asking, like the victimhood at the top of the triangle, when poor us, when we're actually leading these organisations, have so much agency and autonomy. And I just think we need to be remembering the privilege that we have and listening to the people who are doing the work with the people we ultimately serve. I think those organisational reflection questions that are an attachment to the capability framework, there's some brilliant ones in there, especially some of the stuff we've been talking around staff safety and well-being, and in terms of those leadership organisational questions. I absolutely think that they would start the dialogue, and I think the questions that would flow out of that, they might not give you all the answers, but it would start the dialogue and the thinking about what the organisational thinking is. And again, trying to harvest as much information to be guided by the people doing the frontline work to inform a lot of the answers, or at least more of the questions that would lead to the answers. I think they're great reflective questions, and I wish I'd had them and paid more attention to them.